So I recently finished reading Toni Morrison Sula, and I have a lot of different emotions and a lot of different thoughts, okay? And one thing that I have been sitting with is the question, what does being a good woman actually cost Black women, right? And I know that there are a lot of complexities in the book, but I don't necessarily think Toni Morrison was interested in helping us judge Sula, the main character, but I think that Toni Morrison was interested in showing us the conditions that make judgment feel necessary in the first place. And so thinking about this from a Black women's health intelligence lens, right? I really think this book was a case study in how communities regulate belonging and what that regulation does to Black women over time. Let's talk about it. Hey, I'm Dr. Lakeisha Watson, epidemiologist and data storyteller, translating data into public health insights for Black women. Welcome back to Epi Fridays and episode 5 of our Hot Girl Epi Summer mini-series. One of the most interesting things to me about Sula, the character, is that the community kind of organizes itself around her, right? She becomes the reference point, the warning. She is everything a good woman isn't supposed to be because they have kind of positioned her as the excess. And what I mean by that is she is often seen as someone who is too independent or too sexual or too unpredictable, too unwilling to conform. And by defining Sula in that way, the community creates a shared understanding of what an acceptable woman looks like, and it ain't her. And I've talked about how community can be protective for our health, right? It can give us connection and support and identity and a sense of belonging, but community can also create and reinforce harmful norms, right? And that's because communities can shape what is considered acceptable, respectable, and who's even worthy of belonging, right? And we see that happening in Sula. The community has ideas about what a woman should be, how she should behave, and what she owes to other people. And so by doing that, there's this value that's placed on being the woman who takes care of her family, who can be dependent on, and who doesn't disrupt the social order. And Sula, she refuses a lot of that, right? And what's interesting is that her refusal doesn't just make people dislike her. It makes her a threat to the idea of what a woman is supposed to be, which brings me back to the question that I had before. What does being a good woman actually cost Black women? Because when goodness becomes tied to how much of yourself you're willing to give to other people, there can be a cost to constantly meeting that expectation. Which leads us to our good sis, Nell. So Nell is Sula's best friend, and in many ways, she represents the life Sula refuses. So Nell follows the script. She gets married, she has babies. She builds a kind of life that the community recognizes and respects. And that is what makes the contrast between these two women so interesting. Sula is judged for rejecting those expectations, while Nell is affirmed for meeting them. But Morrison doesn't necessarily show us that meeting those expectations makes Nell more fulfilled, right? So instead, we're left to consider what happens when so much of who you are becomes tied to the roles you perform for other people. Because those roles are, they take work. It comes with a lot of responsibility. They require emotional labor and compromise, and sometimes even like self-suppression, silence, and over time you can become so accustomed to being who other people need you to be that it becomes difficult to separate who you are from who you've been expected to be. And that's where stress comes in. So stress can build up when you're constantly managing responsibilities and relationships and everyone else's needs without much room for your own. And if that becomes your normal, you kind of get stuck in this space where you just think, hey, it is what it is. And so you may not even recognize that you're stressed out. That's what makes this so important when we talk about Black women's health. There can be real health consequences when the demands and expectations placed on us are constant and we don't have enough opportunity to recover from them. And over time, chronic stress can affect cardiovascular health and sleep and mental health and blood pressure. So when I ask what being a good woman can cost Black women, I'm not saying that caring for people or being dependable is unhealthy. I'm actually thinking about what happens when we're expected to do things at the expense of ourselves. So I don't think the text is really asking us whether Sula was a good woman or a bad one. I think Morrison is really asking us why Black women are so often given a choice between belonging and becoming. Sula and Nell, they make very different choices, but neither woman walks away untouched by the expectations surrounding them. And that's what has really stayed with me after finishing the book. When we praise Black women for being all the things that we are, we also have to ask, what is it costing her to be that woman? Something can be valued by our families, our communities, even ourselves, and still come with a cost to our health. And maybe that's one of the things the book gives us, right? The permission to question not just the choices Black women make, but the expectations those choices are being made within. All right, y'all, that is this week's Epi Fridays. I hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next week. Bye.